I don't think this video needs much more of an introduction because I am sat next to the new Ironman World Champion, Lucy Charles-Barclay. Congratulations, Lucy. How are you feeling just, over 12 hours after?
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly sore, but I couldn't be any happier. It's definitely a dream come true. It's definitely not sunk in yet, but I can get used to definitely hearing that I'm the new Ironman World Champion.
And obviously adding to your 70.3 title, so you've now ticked off both of those distances. This was your 5th attempt to get here. You had 4 seconds, 4 silvers, however you want to word them, and you were always very positive with those, and it's an incredible achievement. But what did you learn from each of those that helped you turn it into gold yesterday?
Yeah, every race I've had here, I've learnt something about myself, and it's always been tough. I feel like every year I'd improved, but I just hadn't quite got the top spot. And I definitely thank the athletes that have pushed me to become a better athlete to win this, particularly Daniela Reef, moulded me into just this athlete that has eventually gone and won it. And yeah, speaking to her at the end was very emotional as well.
Oh, I mean, she's such a champion, isn't she? And you had you've done this not in a year that's sort of had a few athletes missing. This is what everyone was saying beforehand is the strongest field we've ever seen. Did you give yourself a chance to believe you could win it, or were you just focused on the process? Like, what were your feelings going into the race?
Yeah, I really tried to just stay focused on the process. I think my main thing was to try and execute what I'd been doing in training, and then I knew I would have a good day. But on the flip side of that, I remember sitting in the pre-race press conference and just seeing all these incredibly strong women either side of me and thinking, this is going to be one hell of a day. Like, we're going to put on one hell of a show, and whoever wins this race, it's going to be unbelievable in this field. So I still can't believe I did it.
Yeah, that is you. I mean, all of us watching it, we've been so spoilt to see that incredible field. And I don't think anyone could really guess even who was going to win. And I think it's fair to say that you were maybe slightly more under the radar than sometimes this year. Did that take off some pressure, or does that not really bother you?
Yeah, there definitely was less external pressure, but the pressure from myself, the want to win, was huge. And I was trying not to come into this race all about the win, because I think that's a really bad way to go into a race, because if you don't win, you've almost lost. So I was like, we can't think about the outcome or the finish position. It's just got to be about, this is what I was doing in training. Am I able to deliver all of that together on the day? And I feel like I almost did that. There was points where it could have been a bit better, but I still, really on the swim and the bike, I couldn't have done any more. I just stuck to the game plan, and it came together.
Well, let's talk about that game plan. I mean, yes, obviously you had the fastest swim of the day, and then you had the fastest bike of the day. And there was a few people I spoke to early on the bike course, and they were like, well, it's a matter of time until that group, because there's so many of them, they're just going to catch you. Were you aware of the splits and just who was in that group that was chasing?
So the only split I got initially was from Matt Lieto, who was on the motorbike, saying that Taylor was, I think he said, 90 seconds back or something, and then the gap went up a little bit, and I was like, well, I must be biking well if I'm growing the gap on Taylor, but obviously I didn't know what was going on behind her, so I wasn't sure if the group was coming up to her. But I think my main focus was Reese had really put a clear plan for the bike right at these watts. He'd actually set it as a zone, so I didn't actually look at watts, I just had to hit the right zone. And I was just doing that. I was actually a bit above it and felt good. And I was like, well, if I'm riding at this, then potentially they're not going to close because I'm riding well. And then when I got to the turn where you descend down to Harvey, I actually had the Cube guys out there with whiteboards giving me a time split, and the gaps were getting bigger again there, which I think there's pros and cons to getting time splits. It's great when the gaps are getting bigger, it's such a positive lift, but then on the flip side, if those gaps are getting smaller and you know you can't do any more, it can kind of spiral you into this negative place. But luckily, the splits were going the right way, so I felt really good. And then we did the climb up to Harvey and back down, and the guys were in the same place again on the way back, and the gaps had got bigger again. So I knew I was riding really well, but I also could see that it was Laura and Annie that were kind of the strong runners that weren't that far behind. It's still a decent gap, but I was like, they're not the two names you want to see when you've still got a marathon to run. So I knew I still had to be really vigilant on the nutrition and focus on myself, get myself to the run in a good place.
And you obviously have a very different race to the majority of pros because you are always going from the front, from the gun. And do you have that plan B to change the plan slightly if you do get caught? Say Taylor had caught you, would you potentially risk upping it slightly or even backing it slightly to then ride with somebody that came along? Or what happens then? What's plan B?
Yeah, I mean, I fully anticipated that Taylor would catch me on the bike. I thought that's what was going to happen, and I anticipated that she would come past hard and try and drop me, and I was going to see what was realistic, but at the same time, I wasn't going to blow up my whole race if she was going too hard. And like I said, it's a marathon run at the end of the day. If she was going too hard, she could potentially blow up. So that's when you really have to just stick to your own game plan and stay very strong in your own head when people might be doing crazy things out on the course. So yeah, it's a tough position to be out in front, especially when you're not really sure what's going on behind you as well.
And I think that's what we all love about watching you race. You are so gutsy, you just go. Because I think a few people thought maybe Taylor would try and stay on your feet, and then that could be to your advantage overall, because we didn't know how long she could last into a marathon. Did you have any discussions with the girls beforehand, or did you have any idea what Taylor's plan might have been? And kind of, because we know you went off hard, was that to try and drop everybody on purpose, or just your swim?
Yeah, I think I didn't speak to any of the girls beforehand. We'd obviously done the training swim the week before, so I knew my swim was in a good place, but you never know how hard people are pushing that. Do they really go all in and kind of get a real idea of where you are before the race? But I knew my swim was good, and I don't know any other way than going out hard, so I always go out hard. And then I'd seen I'd got a bit of a gap, so I was like, oh, I might as well hold this. I think if we'd been a big group all together, then it would have been smarter for me to just sit in and save energy, but it didn't work out that way in the end.
And onto your bike, I mean, that is, you were the fastest biker overall. Did you know that at the time? Did you have any idea that you could get the fastest bike split of the day?
No, I mean, I had been biking really well in training, and I felt like in some of the races I'd done really all of this year, my biking just hadn't showed what I'd been doing in training, and I was getting frustrated of I can't understand why I'm not delivering in a race. So it was great that it finally all came together in this race where it matters the most to me, and to do it on the spectacular bike that Cube had made me was, the icing on the cake, really.
Talk to me about that bike, because we actually were lucky enough to have a closer look at it, and they were showing how you've moved your position slightly further forward. You went for a slightly smaller, big chainring this time. What made you make those changes?
Yeah, so we've done a bit of testing in the wind tunnel, and actually it wasn't any faster, me going forward, but it wasn't any slower. I was just more comfortable and able to deliver a bit more power in that position, hence why we did it. But I've obviously I worked very closely with Cube. We met up in January this year to design the bike, and they'd come up with this mermaid theme, which I loved, and they kind of called it Mermaid Can't Wait, she can't wait to win. And I didn't really want to go too much into that, because I was like, that's a lot of pressure if I'm saying this before the race. And
you might have to wait another year.
Yeah, I really don't want to wait another year. So, but it was amazing to kind of just be able to look down at that bike and think, this is just amazing. And it just felt like it was so smooth. And I actually went with a slightly smaller chain ring than last year, but I had been training on a 54 out here and thought that was too small if we got some tailwind. So I went up to a 56, and I think that was the right choice.
And you are very good at transferring your indoor biking to your outdoor biking, and you had a very different prep this year. Was the prep because of, you didn't go to Lanzarote because of visa issues, or was it purely, we just want to try something different? What was the thought behind doing a lot of prep at home in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, visa issues was definitely one thing with not going back. We had no more days left in Europe, so we couldn't do that. And then we wanted to be at home. We felt like it could work at home. I felt like it was going to be harder at home, but you've got the home comforts. My physio's there every day if I need him. I've got the dogs, which is nice to take your mind off of training. And we hadn't spent a great deal of time at home, so it was just nice to be there. But mentally, it's very, very tough at home to be in training camp mode at home, and your family come round, but you're not really speaking to them. You're training and you're a bit grumpy and you're tired and going to bed early every night, getting up early every day. It's quite tough. And we decided that if mentally I was struggling too much, we'd probably come over to the US and train in the heat somewhere. But actually I was getting the job done and ticking the boxes, so we just stayed there.
Do you have a training partner when you're training at home?
I mean, Reese is the person that's there, but actually he's not really been training that much during this block, so it pretty much was me on my own for the entire block. Obviously, he'd be there supporting me, getting the nutrition that I needed on the bike, or he might run on the treadmill next to me, but pretty much it was solo for the whole effort.
And what was your heat prep? Were you doing it as in making the room hot that you're training in? Were you doing hot bars after and just training normally? No fan? What was the structure of that?
Yeah, so I never used a fan for any of my training, all the indoor stuff. If it was easy riding, then we'd always do it in simulated heat as hot as possible and then get into a sauna or a hot bath. If it was my key workouts, then I might get treated to a fan, but it was very rare.
And how much did you do outside versus inside?
I think I did one outdoor ride, which was when we had the really hot weather at the beginning. And then I did 2 outdoor runs. One of those was with layers on, which felt more horrendous than being indoors. So it was not a treat. I thought I'd go back on the treadmill.
I mean, I think that shows your mental, toughness and your preparation, and that must have come into play. Obviously the physical benefits we saw coming into play, but those mental benefits of going through that. Coming out here, how did you feel when you arrived 2 weeks before?
Yeah, just over 2 weeks we arrived here, and I felt like the heat prep had worked straight away, but definitely the indoor training is a lot more mentally challenging. So coming into the race, I feel like you have a slight edge there with being able to deal with it. And because I am training on my own and usually racing out front on my own, it's a similar scenario of getting comfortable inside my own head. And when the negative thoughts come in, how you kind of bash them off and try and stay positive.
Oh, that's very true, and we definitely saw that come to play. And back to the race, so you kept a considerable lead, and Taylor sort of got close and then drifted away a bit, and she'd looked very relaxed on the bike, and I think people still thought it was still very unknown. And I was watching the feed, and I must admit, obviously being a Brit, slightly biased, massively eggy food, I think everybody was out there, but you got off the bike, and I thought you looked lame when you started running into transition. And I gather there was something that's been niggling you. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so, I mean, all in all, my prep had been perfect for this race. And then a week out from the race, I was doing an easy run here and something went in my Achilles. And we were trying to play it down and say it would be fine. But every run I did, I could feel it. And I was like, is this going to get worse in the race? It's not a 10K run, it's a marathon. So I definitely felt it in T1 and T2 when I was running. I mean, my whole body was stiff in T2 after riding that far anyway. But I was like, is this going to hold out? And then actually a mile into the run, my calf started going and I was like, is my day over when I've got such a good lead over these strong runners? Is that going to be the end? And I even said to Reece, this is not good, which I think made his day a lot worse for a while. But I was looking at my watch and I was like, I'm still running a really good pace, the exact pace I want to be running. So it's not slowing me down, I'm just in pain. And I think then in my mind, I was like, it's going to be more painful to not get this title today when I'm this far in front. I've just got to manage this and try and ignore it as much as I can.
I mean, you masked it well because I saw you quite a few times and you didn't look lame. I mean, you did initially and then you were hiding it well, but when we've seen you today and your calf is not looking too good.
Yeah, it's pretty bruised and swollen today. I think the physio's got his work cut out, but I mean, I'll take any pain right now. It doesn't matter. I've got that title now.
And I want to talk a little bit about your running. And I think, am I right in saying it's only your second time in an Ironman under 3 hours in your marathon, and in conditions like this that were so hot? You were only 4 minutes slower than Chelsea Sodaro, who comes from a track background, and you come from that swimming background. You still got that incredibly strong swim. And I come from a swimming background, and I just look at you of how your body can run that fast, and how much work have you done on your running? I know you've worked with Red Bull. I know you've had lots of injuries over the last couple of years, but how? What do you do, Lucy?
Yeah, I mean, we really pushed the running in this block. My attitude in the training was that I'd rather not even be on the start line than I want to be on the start line thinking I can contend for the win. So I was like, if my body breaks in this block, then I've pushed it to try and win. So we did really push the running, and actually I felt like, obviously I had the calf issue, so I feel like I had the potential to actually run a lot quicker, but because I'd done the work before this happened, physically it was there, I just had to cope with the pain, and I think that's what allowed me to still run under that 3 hour mark. And
have you changed your gait much, from the couple of quite bad injuries you've had over the last 2 years? Have you worked on anything biomechanically, or is it more just the approach of how you go about the load?
Yeah, we've done a lot of strength and conditioning just to really try and balance me out. There's a few imbalances which led to the hip issue that I had last year. But really, it felt like my gait just sort of naturally adapted as I ran more. And we just gradually would build up that mileage and my body was able to tolerate it. So, yeah, hopefully, touch wood, I'm in a bit more balanced place now, and my running can keep progressing nicely.
I mean, yeah, it's amazing to watch. And you mentioned that at 28 felt like your body was falling apart, reaching 30, and you've been competitively having a great battle with an athlete who is 40, Annie Haug. I mean, how much do you talk to her, and are you inspired by her performing like that at 10 plus years older than you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Annie is an amazing competitor, and I've got nothing but respect. And I think it goes both ways. We really do respect each other. We train out in Club Centre, Lanzarote a lot. We see each other putting the work in. But for her to be doing what she's doing at 10 years older than me, I think, God, my body will not still be going in 10 years, or I can't see it doing that. So it's incredible how well she's obviously looked after herself during what she's done. And I know she is on top of everything, so professional in what she does. So yeah, it was amazing to have that battle with her again. I feel like we've had multiple battles here.
Yeah, both ways.
Obviously both coached by Dan Lorang as well. So, and he's just a great coach and has done a great job with both of us, clearly.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that, and we've had the privilege of chatting to Dan, and he's very science-based, and obviously you two are very different athletes, you and Anne, but was it watching what he was doing with Anne that made you want to join to work with Dan, or what inspired you to reach out and get coached by him?
Yeah, so Dan actually reached out to us when I was looking at potentially going down the Olympic distance route and balancing Ironman, because he's got experience in both and was just really intrigued by the endeavour that we were looking at. And obviously we always feel, or don't proclaim to know everything, so we were like, he could be an amazing asset to our team. And I think having both him and Reese working with me, and Reese is there every day, seeing what I'm doing, can adapt the plan, and obviously seeing what athletes he's worked with for the likes of Jan Frodeno and Annie Haug, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So he's been a really great addition to our team.
What are the biggest changes that he's brought, or is it lots of little tiny ones, or what? Yeah,
I wouldn't say the training is massively different. Maybe I do a little bit more now, but it's a lot more structured. Like, I probably used to just get on the bike and ride for 4 hours, whereas now it's a real workout, and where I'm got to hit specific watts. There's a bit more lactate testings and science-driven stuff, although, again, Reese has always been quite interested in that. But I think you can take a lot of confidence from doing the lactate testing, like when we were leading into this, and I was running at paces that I felt were far too fast to be running here, but then my lactate was saying I was in the complete right place. So you can take a lot of confidence from that when it's going the right way. I think Gustav Eden said when it's going the wrong way and it's telling you you're not ready, then it can be really hard, because does the science not lie? So it's good in places, but sometimes we just like to train on feel as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that triathletes can take from that. But back to the race briefly, and that part of the race, and were you getting splits on the run? Like, was Reese on the countdown? I know you've had that situation many times before, and how much bigger was it, the buffer than previous?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a good gap going into that run. I think I had a bigger gap potentially than last year starting that run. And I had people out on the course, and Reese did amazing to get all around everywhere, giving me splits and really just telling me what I needed to hear when I was in a really bad place and suffering. But yeah, I think I got a split when I came out of the energy lab that it was still 8 minutes. It was 8 minutes, I think, when we went in, and it was still 8 minutes when we came out. So at that point, there was a small bit of confidence, but then you're always doubting it, because I think we had maybe 11 or 12k to run at that point. You're doing the maths in your head of, oh, if I ran this pace and if she's running that pace, like, how many k's have I got until she might catch me? And even with about a mile to go, one of the Cube guys was there and said I had 3 minutes, and I was like, oh, but if I fall down Palani and then I'm crawling, then I've lost. So I was like, just go down Palani really carefully. Like, my foot started cramping at that point, and I was just like, just get me on a Leahy drive. And it wasn't until I got there that even then I had to look over my shoulder just to check. And then I was like, right, now I can enjoy running in. But I didn't even want to slow down running up that finish chute.
I was going to ask you that, because you didn't look like you even really did you didn't sort of stop to take it in. You were just so set on that, taking that tape. Did you know what the clock was doing?
I had no idea. I mean, obviously I saw it when I was running up to take the tape, and I was like, that's pretty quick. I couldn't even think what the record course time was. So, yeah, I couldn't believe it when I found out I'd done that.
I thought you were running for the record. I thought that was like, she's not taking this in, she's going. And she's like, and then eventually the celebration was there, and even more to celebrate than you maybe first thought.
Yeah, definitely. And I think because I've had that second place 4 times and not got the tape, I think in my mind I just had to get to that physical tape to be like, I've done it, I've got it. So yeah, it was a huge relief as well to do it.
And yesterday was a very special day, the first time with basically no men racing on the island at all. The strongest field that I remember seeing. How did it feel being out there in that environment of just women all battling it out on such a fast, tough day?
Yeah, it was amazing, and the support from all the women on the course was incredible. Like when I was riding back the other way, everyone was cheering. I was screaming at them as well, and it just felt so special to have such an amazing, massive sporting event with just female athletes and putting on an incredible show as well, just to showcase, one, how tough we are, but how amazing all the athletes are that do this.
And you naturally, whether you mean to and try to or not, inspire a lot of girls, especially the younger girls all around the world. And now your platform's just gone up another level. How do you hope that can do good work? And have you got any had chance to even think of like what you might want to do with this bigger platform you have?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I want to be able to give back more and inspire more people to get into not just triathlon but sport in general, and I think it's an amazing platform for me to have to just showcase what sport can do for you and the lessons that you can learn about yourself just from doing it. So if I can inspire more young girls, women to get into sport, into triathlon, then yeah, I'll be super happy.
Well, you already are. Just being here, just winning that title, even without winning the title, the way you race is so inspiring. Lucy, you've had this goal of becoming Ironman World Champion for so many years. You've now reached it. What are you going to, like, what's going to drive you now?
Yeah, I think it's been a huge weight on my shoulders for a long time, and actually the training block leading into this at times was really tough. It wasn't even that enjoyable. I was like, I've just got to get this done. I was just getting out of bed, getting the job done, and I was like, I know I really want it because I'm putting the work in, but it's tough. And actually I think going forward now, I can go and race and enjoy it because I've ticked this box that I've wanted for so long. I feel like a bit of pressure's off my back. So hopefully going forward I will find training and racing a bit more fun.
Well, I mean, it's crazy to say that this has been your 5th time here to win the title, yet you're only 30. And we hope to see you back here on top of that podium many times more.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, Lucy, thank you so much for your time today. And again, huge congratulations. Go and enjoy Cloud9 and ride the wave.
Thank you very much.
Well, guys, big thanks to Lucy. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. I mean, I know I have, and I can't believe anyone else could not want to sit down and watch this. So if you have enjoyed it, we'd love it if you gave us the support. You can do that by hitting the thumbs up button and subscribing. But also, obviously, if you don't yet already do so, check out Lucy's channel.